Computer audio. We're using computer audio. Participants. Chat. One recording.
Hey Barry, how you doing, man?
Fine, John. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So I think tonight we were going to talk about the fact that we are right at the edge of high miles. So what are we going to do? I mean, how are we going to help people get through high miles?
Exactly. We. How are we going to do it? Because it's a lot of conditions about doing high mileage. Well, let's start off with
Yeah.
one thing, which is that the LA Lakers are not just a marathon training program. We have a fully live and viable half marathon program keyed
Okay.
towards the Malibu half marathon, which this year has multiple options, and in the spring, the OC half marathon. And if you go to lalakers.org, the member section, and look at the training schedule, if you actually notice two columns to the right, I had to hold up the hand, of the full marathon mileage is a column that says half marathon mileage. And that'll get you ready for a half marathon. And it also includes the up to Malibu, a cool down period to recover, and then a retraining to make sure you're absolutely good on OC day, not overtrained by putting in so many miles week after week after week.
So I got a question about this, and I've always wondered this because I've done most of my seasons I've trained for a full marathon, but I've there've been 2 seasons where I've only trained for a half marathon, which was fine. I had a great time. I felt safer. I didn't feel like I was pushing or running the risk of injury. But I'm curious about this. If I've trained up to a half marathon, how much farther do I need to go if all of a sudden miraculously in, I don't know, May or June, there's a marathon that I want to run. So in other words, if I get up to that training level and sort of maintain it through March, how far am I from doing a full marathon?
You are within a step of a full marathon. And the key is what you said.
Okay.
I'm training from now till March consistently. Now, one of the keys I would have someone do is throw in 4 to 6 miles on Sunday after a Saturday run. This is a trick used by ultra marathoners who never do a 50-mile run. But what they do is they'll do a longer run on the Saturday, eat well on Saturday night, but go out on, here's the key, tired legs, muscles that
Mm.
are not repaired on Sunday, and push them further. Now, the ligaments, the joints have had some recovery time, so the chance of injury is lower, but the muscles are stressed. The mind feels the I don't want to go out, but does go
Yeah.
out to simulate those later miles in the marathon. You're getting that marathon simulation through this period. And with that continuous training, your body's ready. You just got to have your mind set to go, and you'll be good for that marathon.
So in other words, if I were to complete a full or a half marathon training course, I'm really not that far. I would then have to figure out how to do like an 18-mile run or a 20-mile run and put that in the tank and then do my taper to the full marathon.
Exactly.
So
And
I'm really close, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Okay. And I think it's interesting too that the thing you said about running on tired legs. I mean, that's a strategy that we've also told our members for years if they're traveling, because of course, if you are traveling, you are in a strange place. You might not know the neighborhoods or the courses or something like that. But I know in the past, I was told when I started, and I've told people that I've been mentoring, okay, you're supposed to do 14 miles, but all of a sudden you're in Albuquerque and you don't know anything about Albuquerque. Well, maybe you could do 8 and 6 or 7 and 7 or 10 and 4 or something like that. So it's the same principle, right?
Of course, yes, exactly. It is the same principle. And in that case, you've got all those other stressors built in of traveling
Right.
unknown place. So it is definitely that. The only thing, and you brought it up, I'd throw in an 18 in there somewhere, and that's to test your nutrition. You've got to have a test run where you can see does the same stuff I've used every week on the 8 mile Does my stomach tolerate it at 17 miles? And you
Right.
want that test run. You don't want to find out on the race day.
And one of the things I think it's important for us to acknowledge, there's sort of two sides to what we're trying to do here with this particular season, where people are running either by themselves or maybe just with one partner at a distance. Which is, we understand that people have security concerns, right? So they don't want to, they have security concerns in terms of just their personal security, like, I don't know, being attacked or mugged or something, but also in terms of being injured or something. They don't want to take risks and be far from home. So we understand that that's a problem. But I also think, and I think you and I have talked about this together, we also think that there are a lot of opportunities here, right? So this is kind of like a choose your own adventures season, is what I've been telling my folks. It's a chance to do things you've never done before. If you have just always gone into this thinking marathon, then maybe you're going to learn something about yourself if you decide to do a half marathon. But more than that, there are creative solutions that I think both of us have heard people using to get their miles in safely and to have fun. So I was sort of thinking maybe we could trade a few of those stories. Like, what have you heard people doing differently this year to both have fun, but also to maintain their safety?
One thing a lot of people are doing is parking their car somewhere and going around with their car as their central point. That's where they have a first aid kit, they have water, they have food. And really, they're taking to heart now, making sure someone knows when they're going, when they're expected back, and what having their cell phone charged. And the other great one I'm hearing now is, because Starbucks bathrooms are shut down, many people know where 7-Eleven is to get that extra water or that Cliff Bar for nutrition. But that's taking safety into also other things. And I think you were talking about doing loops.
Yeah, I was very impressed because, Jim Doyle and Carrie Ann Engel are the two people, and I think Donna did this as well. A number of people I've heard, and Suzanne from the 11.5s, a number of people I've heard have set up loops. I think a couple of those guys even did an ultra. I think they even did 50. Am I wrong about that?
I think you're
But
right.
they've certainly done.
You're right.
Yeah, and it's so I remember the 11.5s talking about an 8-mile loop that they were completing. Carrie Ann, I remember describing this in some detail. So that's obviously an option as well, right? If you can set up a loop. And I know, we all love novelty, right? And we one of the fun things about marathons is seeing the city, but those loops kind of makes a lot of sense. And if you're partnering with somebody else, again, at a distance and safe, maybe you got one car someplace and maybe somebody's house or apartment is the other sort of north and south poles of your loop or whatever. We've also had a lot of success with out and back courses, and that's what the 13s have been focusing on. Just this past weekend, we did our 10-mile run, and we started at Playa Lagoon, and it was just a straight out and back. So we weren't running together, but everybody saw each other, which was really, I think, really important. And also important from a safety standpoint, because if anybody got into trouble, then we would see them and we'd be able to pick them up. And also, this was the first weekend we had the purple shirts out there. So we saw not only the 13s, but a lot of other people out there. A lot of us, not the entire club, but many people in the club, I think maybe 2/3 of the club are runners, as I recall. But, it's probably safe to say, runners, there's nothing wrong with walking a little bit more, or maybe walking a lot. I mean, what do you think about that, Barry? Both you and I are big fans of both. Mm-hmm. But do you do anything if you walk more?
There is absolutely nothing wrong with walking. All of us are walk runners or run walkers because we're taking the walk breaks. And walking changes the set of muscles, but still the hips, the core has to be engaged, the glutes. So it is a great way of doing it. And for some areas, it's a safer way to do it. You're still going to get exercise, remember this, the original cross training before elliptical machines and Gold's Gym and all this was walking. The first
Mm,
long distance races were walking races of multiple days in Madison Square Garden. So walking is
mm.
an amazing way to get the miles in, time on feet, safely, and add to the run. I
And
know
I
that,
think I got,
well, I was just going to say that this Sunday, I had a very long Saturday and I just didn't feel it was
yeah.
a training run, just wouldn't. I went out for 6 miles of walking and it was not just physically, but mentally, just clearing the head and having an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think that's really key. And I tell you another mental thing about it was interesting. I had a runner who started a little bit late with us, and we were up to 6 or 7. I don't remember what it was, but she's like, I'm only at 4. And I said, well, there's no reason you can't run 4 and then walk 2, and you'll put your miles in. And she did it. And I think it was a confidence builder. I also think, sort of tagging on what you were saying, is I've heard about some really wonderful sort of walking oriented projects. Like, again, Carrie Ann, I don't know if you know this, just completed a walk every street um, uh, exercise in her zip
Wow.
code where she's basically been recovering from a surgery, and she literally walked every single street in her zip code, which was a lot of fun for her because she got to see a lot of parts of her part of Los Angeles that she'd never seen before. And of course, as you know, because you and I have done this together, I am a big fan of just walking the complete distance of a Los Angeles street. We've walked, the Wilshire, the big stroll along Wilshire Boulevard is always fun. Pico Boulevard, Santa Monica Boulevard, they're all a lot of fun to walk on. Go downtown, start there, and walk to the ocean. That'll take you a whole day, and that's your 15 miles right there. So,
In fact,
and
there's an argument about training for 26.2, and it's something that came up with the leggers. For those of you who knew, was do we have to do 26 miles because getting the
right.
body and mind ready for it? And Dr. Phil Maffetone in his book actually he recommends only going out and running for up to 3 hours because the chance of injury
Mm.
increases. But to make the brain ready, he has his people walk for an extra hour or hour and a half. They don't take a break, they just go right into a walk. It gives the mind the I'm on my feet for this whole period, so it isn't a surprise come race day.
Sounds great. I mean, and again, I think it's important that everybody remember this is the year you get to try something new because everything's off the table. So, try something. If you are a dedicated, hard and fast runner, try something new. Try a walk, try walking, in places you haven't been. I'm curious, by the way, I know you were very good at, I mean, I'm a creature of habit. I'm used to going to 1450 every Saturday. This has been kind of tough for me in that regard. But I know that you actually go all over the city and you do different events and with different groups in different places. So I'm sort of curious about where you've been running in the last 6 months. Have you tried out new courses and stuff?
I've tried out new courses. I have a backbone, and this is something I would recommend. I have a backbone, which is Barrel Hill here in the South Bay, down to the
Right.
Strand, for a little bit of the Strand to get my juices running, get in my rhythm, and then I might look at a street and go, "Ooh, that's a hill. I've never been up that and gone up that way." It's but always that, and also a great thing right now is Strava, which we have many Lager accounts on, has routes. You can say a zip code you want to start at, and it will show routes, not just they're taking streets, but routes that other runners and walkers have used and recommend. So you can look at safety, you can look at elevation, the terrain. I mean, I've been doing surprisingly short runs on soft sand, and it's amazing that
Mm.
a mile on soft sand feels like 10 miles on hard. But you can find these different things on Strava and know that one, there'll be other runners more than likely out there at that same time. So you won't be completely alone. as we always joke, you'll be with your friends that you just never met before if you come in trouble.
That's right. And of course, there's also the Atlas that you and I have been talking about, which
Yeah.
we've got, I think, 18 or 20 maps in that right now. And I'll tell you the one I just added, I'm really excited about, and it wouldn't have happened except for this year, which is Beverly Hills. So we're going to be we have a 5-mile run in Beverly Hills, where we're going to start at that park that's right at Doheny and Wilshire. There's a little round park there, and then we're going to run along Santa Monica Boulevard and see the sights.
Oh, wow.
So, I'm very excited about the fact that I am being pushed to run there. I know you run Griffith Park. I've never run Griffith Park. I'm going to do it this year. We also have runners in Santa Clarita and Simi Valley. And I'm like, hey, they're always driving down. I think some of us are going to go up there and run Santa Clarita and run Simi Valley once it cools off a little bit. So it's an opportunity, right?
And one I'm going to throw out to you and everyone, Balboa Park in central, the edge of Encino and that area, because when you run that, you've got the cement, you've got street, but there's a part at the LA River because it is a flood channel, and you've got a mile of hard packed dirt. And when you're there, you can almost forget you're in the city and you're on not a elevated trail. It's a great feeling. It's a great course.
And that's one of the maps that got added to our atlas. It might have been by you. I don't know if it was you or somebody else.
I think it was somebody else because I've hidden my little treasure.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we need to talk about? There's one more thing I want to say, just because I live in the Culver City area, which is we're about to open a bridge that goes across La Cienega Boulevard from the Baldwin Hills Overlook area to Kenny Hahn Regional Park. So there's basically going to be a trail that starts at La Brea and ends somewhere past Manhattan Beach, which is just kind of crazy. But again, the 13s are going to be running that at some point this year because this is the year to do it all. So anyway, any last words for you?
Yeah, let's remind everyone, be safe.
Okay.
We can make sure someone knows where you're going. If you're just not feeling comfortable on a long run 1 week, break it up over the 2 days. If you just don't think a marathon, virtual or anything fits right now, look at our half marathon schedule. Enjoy that. Know we're going to support you at those other races. There are 2 key races. Half marathon is an option. It's right there on the training page. That's it for me, John.
All right, I'm sold, Barry. I will see you out there on the trails, and thank you as always, for all your advice, Coach Barry.
Thank you, John, the man who got me in the club. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Take care, everybody.